of El Indio off a wall. And then when El Indio has broken out of jail, he baptizes his gun. And then he also sleeps with the hotel manager's wife in El Paso. And then Manco shoots 3 of El Indio's men by a river. And then that was transposed into a desert setting instead. And then in another area, Indio and his gang relax with some women from the village. And in 1967, they actually edited out and censored El Indio's scene where he rapes Lee Van Cleef's sister, and then also her suicide. So they took that out of the film. That was restored for home video releases on DVD and Blu-ray. So, I mean, yeah, that's a super intense scene that kind of really surprised me for a film from especially the 1960s, which had been just going right along like a normal Western up till then. But anyway, there's your trivia for a few dollars more.
Excellent. Good job. So I started it off last time. I'll start it off again. Can you guys guess as to the weird editing thing I might be bringing up in this one?
No.
No? Like that?
I thought there were more fades to black in this. Like, for a few dollars more, we'll return after this commercial break from our sponsors. Like, that's what I kept zeroing on. But what did you find here, Brandon?
Okay, that one scene with Lee Van Cleef's character, and they had, like, there was, like, bullets going off or whatever, and there was, like, just that rapid, really bizarre editing going, like, I'm like, what is happening here right now, and why are they doing this?
Is that when he's shooting the hat?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's...
I think that's what it was, yeah.
Well, that's kind of punches up the moment of, all you have is a hat being shot in the sky, so... But
No, it wasn't the hat. It wasn't the hat sequence. Okay. That scene was really cool. I can't remember. You know what? Okay, so I can't remember exactly what was going on, but there was this weird thing going on where there was this really, really rapid thing, and there was these gunshot sounds going on as this rapid editing was happening. Mm-hmm. So it just kind of threw me out. I think I know what you're talking. I think I know what you're talking about. I do. Yeah, it wasn't the hat sequence though. No.
Yeah. Well, and also, anyways, the flashbacks were kind of odd too. I thought. I mean, I understand why they're there narratively, but just the placement of them was like it's like the only flashbacks in either of these movies so far, and I'm like, oh, okay. Twist. Here's the big reveal of the villain's secret origin or something. So anyway,
story. Had I not known that this was a sequel, I wouldn't have known that this was a sequel. Had I just gone and watched this, because Eastwood's character did not really feel like the same character to me. What do you guys think about that, Tom?
I mean, this is endlessly fascinating to me with these movies. How are they actually sequels, or is it just like, Clint, we're making another West, and yeah, you still got that suit, just bring it, you know? And is that what it really is? Because we have the stuff with the actors who you'd spoke about, and there's more. There's like a guy called Luigi Pistilli, who I think is in all 3, or at least he's in this one and the next one too. And then what Lee Van Cleef is in the next one is a completely different character, which is strange for such a huge part. So the man with no name himself, I just felt that Eastwood was more assured in this one. I think he was just a bit... He's still very internal, but he just felt a bit more confident to me.
He felt like a darker character to me than he did in the last one.
Possibly, but I guess he's in... Is he in a worse situation? I don't know, but he's really at the heart of stuff. In the last one, he's sort of playing people off each other till the end. I don't know. I'll have to think about that one. It's an interesting point, though.
Yeah, it doesn't take away from me, but to me, it just didn't feel like the same character as I was watching it. The fact that he was actively pursuing a bounty, you know, like, I guess I was putting a lot of Mifune's character onto him in the first one, and a lot of Mifune's motivation in the first one, where it didn't feel like Mifune was in it for the money. So to me, it didn't feel like Eastwood was in it for the money in the first one, right? He was just there. He's like, I'm looking for the good end result of this, and to keep them off their toes, I'm asking for money. Right? Is kind of the motivation that I put on the first film. And in this one, he's a bounty hunter looking for people to kill them to get a bounty on them. So to me, I don't know. So right off the bat, it just felt like a different character to me.
Yeah, there's nothing that happened in the first film that kind of informs the character in this film. And you're right, he's not like just drifting through town to see what happens. He is a bounty hunter on a mission in this one. And I'm like, I don't know when he fell into that life. But, you know, I think a twist right off the top is, you know, the movie starts and I don't know. I haven't seen any of these before. I'm like, oh, well, here comes Clint Eastwood on his horse, you know. And then this person just gets shot, and it's like there's a title card. It is an age of bounty hunters, and that's what made me think of The Mandalorian, because they make such a big deal out of how this is. And I know there's bounty hunters; it's not a Star Wars exclusive thing. I'm just saying it's hot right now. It's on everybody's mind in the zeitgeist. But I'm like, oh, this is just an example of how people just get shot on the road out there. So yeah, I think that was a nice subversion of expectations, because I thought, oh, here comes Clint. He's riding in. Nope, that's just a random guy who gets shot. But yeah, I think it's a. This is not a remake of Sanjuro, okay? So let's get that clear. They didn't be like, all right, well, what's next, right? They actually had an original idea. And, the Lee Van Cleef character and the dynamics between him and the Clint Eastwood character are great. And I think that kind of, they're two different, like Lee Van Cleef, he's very polished. He has different technology and all this. And Clint Eastwood, he's just so rough and tumble, kind of down and dirty, simple. Both very different approaches, but very effective techniques as well. So I think, and then one's older, one's younger. So playing those off each other, and then are they working together? Are they not? Like, that's a good angle to do something different with the character we saw in the first film. So I think that was definitely a plus here.
Yeah. Yeah, and I loved Lee Van Cleef's character and all like the weapons that he had. I thought that was really an interesting character trait to have and bring something unique to this movie. He's whipping out all these long guns. I'm thinking the Joker from Batman 1989 shooting down the Batplane, things like that. So, anyways, no, I thought that was really cool. So, Tom, tell us about this one here, because you love this one a lot more than the.
I've got to say that the Lee Van Cleef factor really plays into this one for me. I love this guy, and it's also the part of my fascination with just how things worked back then. Again, we've got a guy, like you were saying in the trivia, Zach, who sort of fell out a bit in the business in America. He worked a lot in TV, like that Twilight Zone he's in. He's not even like the main character. He's just one of the guys sitting in the bar, and he's got a couple of lines or whatever. But then he comes to Italy, and he becomes a big star in Italy. Like, he done the 2 Sergio Leone movies, and there's a whole bunch of spaghetti westerns where he's actually the main lead in them as well. Day of Anger is one off the top of my head. So there's just something about him that I absolutely love. He's like a hawk, those hooked sort of facial features, but he's just got such presence as well. So it's with, again, if we're comparing it to the Yojimbo movies, you guys liked Sanjuro a bit more than me, and I wonder, this one has a bit of an advantage because it just adds another fascinating character into the mix. What would Sanjuro have been like if there's another samurai comes along who's got a different sort of way of working and that kind of thing? So Lee Van Cleef just adds so much to this movie for me, and I really do love him as an actor and a character in it.
We talk about these actors in different roles, and like you're saying, like, it's just another cowboy movie with Clint Eastwood. It's the same kind of thing where it's like, in some people's headcanon, like Air Force One with Harrison Ford is like President Jack Ryan. It's that kind of thing. It's like, it's funny. I mean, nowadays everything's so franchised and stuff, but back in the day, you could kind of connect your own dots and that kind of thing. Same with like Yojimbo and Sanjuro. There were like, we had mentioned there are other samurai movies that Shino from Fufune stars in. You're like, is that him with just under a different name? Who knows? But that's part of it is part of the fun, like connecting these dots, having your head canon about like which movies am I going to watch in this series. But these really are episodic movies. Like you're saying, like there's nothing to say this one needs to take place before or after the last one. But yeah, I think Clint Eastwood,
other than the holes in the thing in the back there.
Very true. Got me there, Brandon. But the thing about Clint Eastwood is the last film was his first starring role. So they're probably like, all right, we don't want to give this guy too much. Just be the strong, stoic, quiet type. Maybe smile sometimes if you're having a good time, Clint, but don't do much else. This time he gets more dialogue. He gets more to do. Probably had more faith in him as a leading man when they had seen what he had done with the first film and had been very successful. So,
yeah, right on. I want to talk about my favorite scene in the movie, and my favorite scene we've already touched on a little bit was the hat shooting scene. I really loved that scene a lot, and I thought it really set up both characters right off the bat. Because Eastwood's trying to tick this other guy off. right? Because they're going after the same kind of bounty, and they're both the same kind of people.
Well, he sends a random Asian man to come pack up all his things and take him to the train station. I was like, what is this? Who is this guy? We just came to take all his stuff, and that's what leads to this confrontation because he wants to get him out of town so he can get the bounty.
Yes. Well, I assume that was like the owner of the establishment where he was like renting or something.
It was just very odd.
Yes.
But anyway.
Go to the station, no, stay here and whatnot. And
the guy's like, whatever. And he eventually just drops the stuff. Says, you guys figure it out.
Yeah, it was a really interesting scene. And then so, Eastwood, he's a great shot. He keeps shooting the hat off. And Lee Van Cleef's character, he's like, you know what? Okay, I'm going to test this out and play this out. And he gets to a point where he's now out of his range. And then he whips out his big long gun and turns the tables on him, right?
Shoots it off his head.
Yeah.
Into the sky. Now, are their hats full of holes now? Right? I mean, shouldn't they be?
No, it just dinged it in the right way, so it just bounced off the bullet. That's how good he was.
Both of their hats should be like Swiss cheese in the second half of this film after this scene. But
no, because he kept shooting underneath the hat on the ground.
Okay.
It just kept on hit the sand and shot it up in the air.
Very good.
So.
I also love the scene with the Klaus Kinski character in the bar. With the smoking scene, and it's all just about domination, isn't it? And posturing and like, I drink your milkshake kind of stuff. It's like, but yeah, the sort of like, okay, I'm going to light my thing off your thing. I'm going to blow your match out. I'm going to do this. And then there's the hat scene later on. So This was before the plot really kicks in, but I just love all this. Everyone's sizing each other up. Everyone's sort of posturing and seeing how they can get one over on everyone else.
Yeah, that was a great scene.
You mentioned the plot kicking in, and I will say I felt this was kind of long. It was over 2 hours, which, I mean, sounds like an absurd criticism, but most of these other ones have been, other ones in this quote-unquote franchise, this loose franchise, they've been under 2 hours, and we're moved along at a brisk pace. There wasn't any kind of, like, slow moment. I did feel like this movie dragged in some places, because I'm like, all right, so where's this going? Like, I know eventually these two bounty hunters are going to like encounter each other, and that's great. But then, like, what is the villain's plot? What is this random flashback? Why does he have this pocket watch that's going to be a big reveal in like 2 hours? Did you guys feel that it dragged at all, or did it feel just right to you?
With my first time watch, no, it felt just right to me. I really liked it and how they were building the characters and whatnot. I found it really fascinating. A really fascinating story, and the subtle things that really stuck out, like you just mentioned, was the watch. Like, I'm like, it's a really neat character trait, and while these things are taking time, to me, it really added to the characters. Where he kept opening that watch, and that song would play, and he's like, okay, when this song is done, we're gonna draw our weapons. It was just like an interesting character trait. Which, yes, it filled up the time a little bit, but it added something to these characters for me.
I think it's funny, really, that the last movie was shorter, but I felt that one dragged a bit for me. This one, I'm quite happy with. It's because it just gets more and more interesting as it goes. And if it is a slow moment, I'm just enjoying Lee Van Cleef do his thing. I'm just enjoying Clint Eastwood do his thing, and just whatever interaction they have. And so there's always something that keeps me interested as the plot really starts to roll.
Yeah, Lee Van Cleef, he has that rivalry with the Hunchback character that eventually comes back to bite him at the end, or at least that character, right? Why would you pick a fight with Lee Van Cleef? That guy is a badass-looking guy, and I'm just going to keep to myself. Like, he wants to drink my milkshake, like you were saying, I'm just going to let him, because that guy is really cool. And... I like, a side character I liked was the old man that Clint Eastwood goes and talks to for a while. I don't know if that's the same guy who was the Undertaker in the first film. It looked like him. I think it might have been just a crazy old looking guy with a beard. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of those out there. But that was just a very enjoyable scene. Like, that was just a one-off character. He's like, you know everybody. Come on, tell me. Oh, did he wear his gun on his belly? Why didn't you tell me that? I told him I'm not going to sell my land to the train factory. And then of course, whenever a train goes by, everything shakes and there's smoke everywhere. It's some nice levity and what's a pretty heavy film for the most part. So I enjoyed the bit characters, and especially that guy.
Well, there's the wife as well in the hotel. Those scenes where she's sort of, clearly lusting after Clint Eastwood, and
Right.
she's like, he's so tall, and